Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're not sleepy after lunch. I'll try to wake you up. My slides will come in a minute. She's slower than me. My name's Keith Teare. I live in Palo Alto in Silicon Valley. I'm British, born in Britain. I was the founder of EasyNet, which is the European internet service provider that we started in 1994. And after EasyNet did IPO, I moved to Silicon Valley in 97. I did a company called Real Names, which was a UTF-8 naming system for internet websites. And then I co-founded TechCrunch, the blog, which I hope some of you read. And today I run an incubator called Archimedes Labs. And Archimedes Labs does three things. We do investments, we do acceleration, and we do incubation. The distinction is the investments, it's somebody else's company, we put money, and we just shareholders. Acceleration, it's somebody else's company, we put money, but we also get involved in the product, and we get stock, which is worth more than our money would buy. So we're like co-founders. This is acceleration. And incubation, it's our own idea. We build a company from an idea. Chat Center is an incubation. Chat Center is an attempt to redefine mobile chat, which, if you think about it, seems like a crazy thing to do, because Facebook just paid $19 billion for WhatsApp. So you would imagine that this must be kind of like the end of history for chat, because you would only pay $19 billion if the history had ended and you could buy the winner. But our starting point is that history has not ended. And so the first thing I want to do in this talk, which is not very technical, is about technical philosophy. Not about actually what we build, but how we think about what to build. And I'm going to go through three things. The first is I want you to understand context as an important variable in deciding what to build. And then I want to talk about today's context, what we should build today because of that, how to think of that in terms of the opportunity, and then I'm going to tell you why Chat Center is an example of this approach. And if I'm successful, you will be able to go away with ideas for yourself which use this approach. So my goal is not to sell Chat Center to you, but to explain Chat Center as the end result of a way of thinking. So first, context and products. You know, a product, if it is not fitting its context, is like a square peg in a round hole. What does that mean? Let's say today the context is dominated by the growth of smartphones. So if we were to build a product today which is heavily web-centric, using a website as the delivery mechanism, probably this is a square peg in a round hole. Because even though the web is fantastic and we all love it, people are using it less and less because they're using apps on smartphones more and more. So we have to think real hard about using the web anymore as the delivery mechanism. The back end can, of course, all stay the same, but the way we deliver it has to take into account the context. You all know this guy, right? He's a bad guy, obviously. Karl Marx. And Karl Marx did say at least one good thing. This is his quote: "Men make their own history, but they do not make it as they please. They do not make it under their own self-selected circumstances, but under the circumstances existing already, given and transmitted from the past. The tradition of all the dead generations is like weighing like a nightmare on the brains of the living." And what he is saying there is, if you allow the present and the past to dominate your thinking, you will become the prisoner of the past. But if you can think of the world this way, not as a static world, but you know, we kind of live somewhere here in the line between the present and the future. But much of the code that we use today was created here, some of it here. But if we want to change the world and we want what we produce to be relevant to our audience, we have to live here, not here. If we live here, then nobody's going to care. It's like R&D. It's got to be somewhere around here. Otherwise, we're the victim, the prisoner of the past. If you do that, you end up like this. You know, it isn't dead, but it isn't truly living. This is a good example of, let's say, Microsoft. Microsoft isn't dead, but it isn't truly living either. It's kind of somewhere in this middle state where it lives on, and it's almost painful to watch the life because it's dysfunctional life. It doesn't really fit the context. And then there's things being born, things which are not yet truly born. You know, a good example of this would be iBeacons. iBeacons are Bluetooth transmitters that have enormous potential when added with software and smartphones to create context for human beings in their life in the real world. But it's the very, very beginning. It costs $30 today to buy an iBeacon from Estimote in Poland. But actually the bill of materials is probably $1.50. So you can tell it isn't truly born yet because it isn't mature, but it's, you know, you're pretty sure it's going to be born. It's going to live. And these two things are the key to life. If you make a bad choice with your choices of technology, delivery mechanism, and product, then your life expectancy will directly come from your choices. So today, you know, if you're choosing MySQL backend on a physical Linux machine with PHP as your programming language and the web as your delivery mechanism, good luck. You know, it's the bad choices, and your life expectancy will be short. If you're choosing Java or Objective-C or Swift on a virtual machines in the cloud with low costs, it still may be bad because you might build bad products, but at least it's a better starting point because the context suggests this. If you think like this, you have to look at yourself and say, you know, is it time to run away from what I did in the past, to escape? Because if I don't run, I'm surely going to die. Or should you fight and you know, stick to what you have because you believe it's relevant for the future? And almost everybody has to make that choice around about every 5 years. And it depends, you know, if you just started, if this is the year to make the choice and you only started your business last year, you have to make the choice this year. But if you've been around for 5 years, you still have to make the choice because the world has changed around you and your context is no longer the same. It's no longer what it was at the beginning. So, this talk is about app services and the mobile cloud. Well, I made those words up. You know, if you go and do a search for app services in the mobile cloud, you will not find very many hits because nobody uses that language yet. So I'm making the case that there's a new context which is only just being born, and that these words, app services in the mobile cloud, are keys to unlocking the possibilities of this new context. Why app services? Well, the first thing is, you know, we all know we live in an app world. We all have many, many apps we either test or use. We change them very quickly when new ones comes along. We're living in an app world. And an app, for the last 3 or 4 years, has been, not always, but for the most part, a standalone thing. That is to say, self-contained, not consuming external services. Very different to Web 2.0. Web 2.0, the browser was consuming external services, often from the cloud. And even before that, Microsoft apps were consuming external services through COM objects on a machine. The consumption of external objects or external services is a constant. But apps, actually, for the first phase of their life, have been pretty self-contained. If you think of WhatsApp, you know, architecturally, if I'm using WhatsApp and I want to chat with you, you also have to be using WhatsApp. There's no external service we can use to glue us together, WhatsApp to WeChat, let's say. It doesn't exist. But on the desktop era, 10 years ago, there was Meebo that could glue together ICQ and MSN Messenger and AOL Instant Messenger. There was external services being consumed through an aggregated chat app that everybody used. So architecturally, in a way, apps are primitive. They're standalone, most of the code is self-contained, and the cloud services are almost always 100% owned by the company that built the app on their own cloud. So this is phase one of apps. It's self-contained, a little bit like portals were the phase one of the web. Everything was contained inside Yahoo. Yahoo had the content, the code, the cloud backend, everything was all Yahoo. But that was in 1995, 1996, 1997. But by 2005, Yahoo has Flickr, it has PubSub, it has all kinds of external services that it consumes in order to produce its service. And it also published services for other people to consume so that Yahoo could be transported elsewhere. We are not yet in that stage with apps. We're in the closed app world of self-contained apps and services. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I think it'll get better in a minute. So in this world, this closed world, there are many things which are in the process of death. And I'm very careful with the words. They're not dead. They're in the process of death. It means they're very much alive, but they're not the future. They are not the future. They are the past and the present, but not the future. And I won't read them all out, but one of them says World Wide Web. That's the one I'll talk about, because this seems crazy, right? To say the World Wide Web is in the process of death. Well, to be clear, I don't mean HTTP is dying, and I don't mean the internet is dying. I mean web pages are dying. And they're dying because we're not spending any time looking at them. We're spending time with our mobile devices, and with these we are not looking at websites mostly. Sometimes we do, but mostly not. So it's dying because of misuse, of lack of use. Even Google search, which is still growing, is shrinking as a proportion of all traffic on the internet, because now mobile traffic is making up more and more of the traffic. So even Google search is in the process of dying, not dead. Won't be dead for many, many years. America Online is still alive after all. So things don't die, but they're in the process of death. These things are in the process of life. They're being born. Not just the mobile operating systems, but the mobile cloud, the Internet of Things, iBeacons, Bitcoin could be in there, Swift, the wearable devices, crowdsourced applications for consumer services, like Airbnb and Uber. These things are all new that could never have existed before the smartphone. Imagine before the smartphone trying to figure out where a taxi was in your city and how long it would take to come to you. You couldn't have done it. You need a GPS in both you and the taxi. You need to have a map so you can see where it's coming. It was only possible recently. So these things are being born, and abstractly thinking the services, these services are coming to life as well. So when you make a decision about what to build and how to build it, and these are two, of course, very separate decisions, you have to take into account this broader context in order that what you choose will be relevant. On the right here, there's some good decisions. On the bad, I even put HTML5, CSS3, and JavaScript over there. And I love them. They're tools I love and use. But the mobile web doesn't seem to be happening. So it doesn't seem to be a good place to put a lot of energy compared to over here, where you have Swift, Objective-C, Java, Node.js, AngularJS, JavaScript, Amazon Web Services, MongoDB, and so on. These seem to be part of what's happening. These seem to be part of what is either going slow or dying. So how to decide what to build? Well, the first thing is you have to think out of the box, is really what Einstein is saying here. You have to, your brain has to go to the place where it is open to the possibility that everything that exists in the past is no longer relevant. And therefore you cannot use the lessons of this era to be successful in the new era. You have to have a blank canvas and a fresh mind and think over. you have to start with the building blocks that seem to make sense and then answer some questions. You know, should everything be mobile? It's a good question. Should everything, not just some things, but everything be mobile? Is there any role whatsoever anymore for the desktop? Well, of course there is. There are all kinds of niches where the desktop's still massively important. Accounting, you know, computer-aided design, coding. There's many, many places. But for the most part, consumer and enterprise apps, more and more the answer will be no, there is no role for the desktop, there's only a role for mobile. Now that has huge implications for everything, including who you hire, how you train them, what they build. Should you do consumer or enterprise? Well, it seems that recent history, the context is that consumer apps get adopted in the enterprise later, and that there is no such thing anymore as enterprise apps. A good example is Yammer. Yammer was evolved from Twitter. It was specifically coded for the enterprise, so it was different than Twitter, but similar in terms of use case and experience, and was eventually sold to Microsoft for, I think, was it $1 billion? It was a lot of money anyway. Yammer clearly was not originally conceived in the enterprise. It was conceived in consumer. So which should you do? Should you be thinking about apps where the content is not paid for, but is either crowdsourced or curated? Beats Music, for example, which Apple just acquired, is curated content. And one of the reasons it's so good is because the curators understand music taste, and when they see somebody that likes certain music, it's the music they like too, and they can curate other music that person would like. And it's human, literally human curation, not machine learning. It's human curation. Or crowdsourcing, like the Waze traffic app, where, you know, Waze, W-A-Z-E, you can get in the car, and on your drive to work, there may be 100 other drivers who are using Waze as well, and they will tell you there's a policeman, you know, at the next corner. Before you arrive at the corner, you slow down, and you become respectful of the law. After you've gone, you can speed up again and decide the law doesn't matter. But Waze is informing you of that because all the drivers are sharing information. It's a new way of gathering content. It's free content, you don't pay for it, but it's incredibly valuable. So if you compare Waze to, say, Google Maps or Apple Maps, Waze is so much better because the information is real time and coming from actual people who are driving. So do you want to do that? Is it a software world or a hardware world? We have a company in our portfolio called Downtown. I'll move on because of time. And I'm going to tell you about Downtown in a minute, which made a hardware choice. So from this many, many possible choices, you can either build a good soup made up of things which are coming to life and ship a product. Downtown, what they did is they took the iBeacons, virtual payments, mobile phone, and crowdsourcing to make an app. And what they do is they put an iBeacon on every table in a coffee shop and one at the door as you walk in. And they have an app which, when you walk in, it says, "Welcome to the coffee shop." And then you sit down and it knows which table you're sitting at, table 16. The menu comes, you order the food and the drink. You don't go to the line, you just go straight to the table. The iPad in the kitchen gets the order. They bring you the food and the drink. You eat, you drink, then you leave. And as you leave, the beacon there, the phone knows you left, and it pays with the credit card without you having to do the physical payment. This app could only have been built in the last 12 months. It would have been impossible to build this app 24 months ago. Maybe 18 months ago, you could have used prototype beacons. A year ago, you could buy beacons, but they were in short supply. And even now, it's pretty much leading edge implementation. It's a very simple idea, a really simple idea. And it means, and this is what it means for the restaurant. The first thing it means is their revenues increased many hundreds of % because people started to order from the table a second cup of coffee or a second pastry. Because they no longer had to stand up and go in line, it was convenient to reorder. The second thing is the tips for the staff increased 10,000%. Normally in a coffee shop, the tips are very low. Downtown made the tip 20% as a default, and the average check was maybe $20. Nobody changed the 20%. Everybody gave the tip 20%. So suddenly the staff are getting more money, the restaurant is getting more revenue. The staff who used to ask the order and take the check now can be nice to you because there's no pressure. They can say, oh, it's nice to see you again today, how are you doing, would you like maybe another cake? So suddenly the human interaction is improved, and the business model for downtown is to take half the tip. They don't, and from the half of the tip they pay the credit card fees that the restaurant used to have to pay to Visa and MasterCard. So the restaurant loves it. Downtown loves it, the customers love it, and it's very modern and future-proof because every restaurant obviously should, not high-end restaurants where you actually want to have a waiter, but fast restaurants, coffee shops, bars, places where normally there's a line, they all love this. Nando's is now talking to them. Nando is a chicken restaurant chain, to put this into 1,200 restaurants. And the company only launched, literally only launched 3 months ago. So this is an example of thinking in context and building things which are relevant. They use Stripe for payments. And Stripe is the first app service in the cloud that I want to talk about. Stripe is a payment service, and every app that can is building it in because it allows global payments from an app with a very small number of lines of code. So Stripe is an example of an app services company. And these guys didn't build payments, they just integrated Stripe. This is app services in the cloud. So we all have a choice to make whether to look back or to look forward. And the choice is going to make a difference to who we become, who we want to be. We can reinvent ourselves, or we can be in slow death. Facebook reinvented itself. It was a web company with a website, and this is its early growth. But this is Facebook today. It's not a web company anymore. It's a virtual reality company with cloud services. Its Instagram is growing, whereas Facebook is declining. Today in the New York Times, they announced that in 3 months, the teenage usage of Facebook declined from 72% to 42% in 3 months. But the Instagram use, up. The WhatsApp use, up. So Facebook's becoming a mobile company. It's no longer really a web company. It's reinvented itself for the context that it found itself in. And Mark Zuckerberg, who is both young and brave, spent about 20% of the value of his company acquiring Instagram and WhatsApp because he knew if he didn't do that, he would not be building in the right context. He would be building in the old context. TechCrunch made the point that Facebook is behaving like a startup, which is what really everyone has to do when the context changes rapidly. If you do not behave like a startup, you probably will not stay relevant. And as a result of that, their revenues from mobile have gone way up. I don't know if you remember when Facebook did an IPO, the stock price went down. And the main reason it went down is people thought mobile would kill Facebook. But Facebook owns mobile now. And 72% of all the revenue from advertising on mobile is going to Facebook because they changed. I've got to finish in a couple of minutes. And let me tell you about Chat Center. So now you might understand why I'm doing a chat service when WhatsApp already exists. WhatsApp is a chat service model on the old model. Everything is inside their cloud. You have WhatsApp, I have WhatsApp, we can talk. But if you have Kik and I have WhatsApp, we cannot talk. With mobile, we all have phones with phone numbers. We can all voice call each other. I don't need to know which phone you have. I don't need to know which operating system you run. I just need to know your number. And if I know your number, your phone will ring, we can talk. The same with texting. If I know your number or your email address for that matter, I can get a message to you. But with chat, no. I have to know which app you use, and I have to know your identity inside that app, and I have to be running the same app. What Chat Center is trying to do is change that. Make it so that we all have a chat address, just like a phone number or an email address. That the address belongs to the person, not the app or the device. It's the person. And so as we change devices or we change apps, we remain the same person, and you can chat with the person just using their chat address. This is the idea of Chat Center. We believe that paid messaging is going away and that everything will be free. And we believe that what we call app silos, chat inside apps, is not the future, it's just the present. Like this world doesn't make sense with many chat apps. It makes no sense with different apps for different people, for different friends. So if chat was universal and free, so it had the benefits of SMS and MMS, in other words, it just works, but it also had the benefits of WhatsApp and Kik and Line, it's free. This would allow this to happen. A business could say, chat with me on the website, and on the mobile phone, the business owner can get the message. Why? Because it's just a chat address. It doesn't need an app. It's just a chat address. For that to work, the chat has to be in the cloud. The cloud service has to provide the chat and the names and the routing so that the mobile phone can get the message. So what we've done is we've moved chat into the cloud and made it a cloud service. And we've built apps on the phone to receive alerts and notifications from the cloud service. And these messages can originate anywhere. This is an example on the web. This is an example on, this is my Twitter page. It says chat with me here, click there. And people can click on my Twitter profile and be chatting with me on my iPhone. They don't need to have any app. The same inside Instagram. You can share somebody your chat name. It's just a URL. In a way, we created URLs for people. Every person can be a URL, and the URL produces a chat with you. This is an example in email with my signature. Chat with me instantly down there. No need for any other method of communication. And this is mobile to mobile, where both parties have the ability to message. We also created outbound chat to any mobile phone number. So we said, okay, a mobile phone number is just an address. If you have a contact address book on your phone and you have people's mobile numbers, it's okay. They can chat with people using the mobile numbers. And for this, we used SMS as a bridge. We take a one-time SMS. The SMS has a link. The receiver clicks the link, and they have a web app. See, I do like the web. They have a web app which puts them into a chat. So the bridge is through the cloud. The revenue model is we charge for names. We never do advertising. So if you want to be Keith Teare, that is a free name because it's a long name. But if you want to be Keith, it's $20 a year. So we have free names, but we also have premium names. Brands, trademarks, first names, dictionary terms are all premium names. So it has a business model, and other people can build it in. Chat Center can be built into other apps because it's just a URL link. That's all it is, a name for a person. This is our stack. It's not very interesting. Notice we did use these things that I said I don't like, but we use them as glue, not as the frontline delivery mechanism. So cloud service for apps, there's lots of them. I mentioned Stripe. There's lots of Bitcoin cloud services now for apps like Coinbase. There's Parse, which was acquired by Facebook. Lair, which is for messaging. Urban Airship, which is for alerts and notifications. Twilio for outbound SMS and voice calls. These are all cloud services specifically built to be consumed by application developers. We think this world is growing and represents a future that will not go away. We think it's big, and we think it's driven by the rise of smartphone shipments. And that is the end. Thank you. And if you want to chat with me, all you need is this link. If you have this link, my phone will beep and I'll be chatting back with you.